said you can bury the workman, but the work will go on. You can silence the voices, but you can't stop the song.
Welcome to Wheeling the Pathways of Life Unplugged with your host, Brain Fitzpatrick. Wheeling the Pathways of Life Unplugged is a snapshot of the day-to-day experiences of disabled individuals as they navigate the world around us. We wish to shed light and open your eyes on a new perspective of people with disabilities. And by going unplugged, we can discuss viewpoints we hope will challenge our viewers' points of view. Most of us have disabilities we must live with, but what defines us is the way we deal with them. And now, here's your host, Brain Fitzpatrick.
Good afternoon, folks. It's good to be back after 2 weeks off. This is Brain Fitzpatrick bringing you an episode of Wheeling the Pathways of Life. And today we have a little different setup, different topic that Matt and I have sat down and talked about and figured out we're not going to do our average shop talk this time. We're going to talk a little bit more about disabilities and his experiences with a child with disabilities. How are you doing, Matt?
I am doing well. Thank you for having me, Brian.
Yeah, and thank you for being willing to share as much as you're willing to share
Absolutely.
With us. I know it's a little unusual for us talking about what we used to talk about. And the reason why we are not doing that is because Matt's not involved so much in the technical aspect of how we do shows and stuff. He's more of a public information person, and he coordinates all the volunteers and all the producers that produce shows like mine, and he lets me come in the studio. So
It's been an interesting transition over the past couple of years, and I think about one of our volunteers was sharing a statistic that he had heard that I think most people will go through something along the lines of 4 to 6 careers in their life. And I was having one of those moments of, I've been working at PCTV for 17 years. That hasn't happened to me. But then it occurred to me, yes, it has, because I started as a production technician teaching people how to do the basic elements of stuff, and I've been doing teaching the whole time, but doing a lot more of the field production and support work, and then running Access Pittsfield for a number of years, and now, as you said, as engagement and experience coordinator, the term that I have heard used and I enjoy parroting is that I'm the station's concierge. Someone comes in and says that I want to make a TV show, or I want to make a radio show, or I'm interested in volunteering. I'm the person who either makes sure that happens or finds the person who will help that happen.
okay.
And they don't let me play with the toys as much anymore.
No, except for when you do trainings, and then you have to learn the toys before the training sometimes to get you.
More than once.
Yeah. So Matt, what I want to do when give us a little before you start asking the questions, and let's talk a little bit about the background of what we're going to talk about today. Like you have a daughter that's disabled.
Yes.
Would you classify it as severely disabled or?
So, I don't like to.
Okay.
Because I don't see her that way.
Okay.
But
No, I mean,
I think the world, like
Yeah.
in understanding and classifying
Yeah.
things, the answer would be yes.
Okay.
She's nonverbal.
Okay.
She has a range of age-appropriate behaviors, but she developmentally, in many ways, is still quite a bit younger than she is physically.
Okay.
She cannot walk unassisted yet, and is still sort of working on self-directing.
Okay.
Like she's good at doing the walking. It's whether or not she's good at not crashing into something that we're working on still.
Yeah. One of the things that I wanted, when you found out about the diagnosis, what basically went through your head when you found out?
So I'm going to preface the answer to the question by saying that the experience is a little bit unique for my wife and I.
Okay.
Because we adopted our daughter. We had her since shortly after she was born.
Okay.
So there is a different set of feelings that parents have when they learn about a diagnosis. And I've heard stories from biological parents who have like a guilt that in some way, whether even if they had absolutely nothing to do with it and it's just a biological genetic occurrence, they feel like there's fault and blame and guilt. And while my wife and I experience some of the regret that there are life experiences that we won't necessarily get. There's the very stereotypical parent comes home, child runs and shouts the parent's name and gives them a hug. That's a thing that we are not likely to experience. There are different ways and different things that we get to experience that parents of typical kids don't get to experience. But so there's a bit of that regret there, but the guilt of that can occur and is understandable for someone who biologically gave birth to a child with a disability we don't have. So learning about the diagnosis was actually a relief in some ways, because we knew that she had some sort of disability, but a generalized developmental disability is not something that we can get support for. It's so nebulous, and there's no services that you can attach to it. There's no support you can find. And I would say that's probably the the turning point when a diagnosis could be put there, to be able to say, okay, these are the things that generally we can expect?
That's one of the, sorry man, you can keep going in a second, but that's one of the frustrating parts. There has to be a specific diagnosis before you can get any kind of services. And whether or not that should be or not, you and I could have discussion now for an hour, but I mean,
Oh yeah, that's
that's clearly a problem. But when I think most of the situation when I was a kid, and of course I didn't know this, but my mother would generally ask, what institution do you want him in? Before I was decided that I was being brought home. And it's like, how could you ask what institution do you want him in? Because, I mean, I can understand the reason for the question. People don't know what to do, but it's like, it's still a human life.
Yep.
So I would have a problem with that. Even today, if somebody came up to somebody and said, what institution do you want him in? And that goes back to some of other people's experience with Belchertown State School, because that was big when I was a kid. At that point, but I wasn't actually part of that, but I was, in that mentality level of services at the time. So, I'm sorry to cut you off like that, man, but
that's okay.
So, what is the most frustrating part, even today, for you, as far as getting services or understanding of fighting for services that you feel she needs? Because let me preface by asking, what I mean is, you know she needs services, but you've got to justify the services. What's the frustrating part between you knowing what she needs and being able to justify, having the services?
I would say that she has the most frustrating part about getting her services is working with any sort of service providers who have any sort of distance from her. So she has an absolutely fabulous team that's connected with her schooling. We also have a fantastic team who, so going rogue a little bit, and then I'll get back onto the topic, but I wanted to make sure that I advocated that anyone who has a child who has a disability would benefit from contacting pediatric palliative care. It's a group that's connected with hospice care in the Berkshires, which is why a lot of people hesitate, because
connected with hospice.
Exactly. And there's a negative connotation that if you are bringing a child into the program, they have to have a life-threatening diagnosis.
Yes. But
Their measurement of a diagnosis that can receive service is a life-limiting diagnosis, with quotes.
Okay.
So, and one of their favorite things to be able to do is to have someone not be eligible for the program anymore because they're too old.
Okay.
But they're an organization that has been tremendously helpful in places where there are gaps of care, where if we need, they're fantastic with unusual therapies. We've got access to art therapy and music therapy and spiritual therapy.
Yeah.
And they've got a social worker and a nurse who are able to connect with services that traditional, her school-based team might not be able to get access to.
Yeah.
The second, though, we have to talk to department, now my words have gone a bit, but the state Department of
Mental retardation, or
yeah, well, it's not called that anymore, but that's the organization that was DDS, I think.
DDS, yeah. DDS.
Once you get to that level and you start dealing with insurances and you have to deal with all of those pieces, then you get a lot of people who are going, well, prove that it's necessary, that you need the help that you clearly need.
Yeah.
I can remember recently we had to get a brand new wheelchair because the chair that she has currently was, it's a stroller style wheelchair. And we're switching to a more traditional wheelchair, one that she's able to physically get herself in and out of, one that will serve her for quite a few more years. The one that she had has seen much better days. She's not gentle with anything. So it's worn out and it needs to be replaced. And so there was this whole process.
Thank God.
There was this whole process to get it replaced. And we got a message of, well, we understand that you think it needs to be replaced, but we don't think you're going to be able to transport the chair that you've asked for. So prove to us that you're capable of handling this sort of. So again, fortunately, the local team came up and came to our house and went to the back of our van and brought an adult style of the chair that she's got, which is quite a bit bigger than the one that she's got, and took pictures of my wife and I handling the adult chair and loading it into the vehicle and going, look, there's space for it. Which you would never have thought would be a way that they would have gone, no, you can't have a thing because we don't think you can transport it. But there it is. So
I'll never forget you.
Oh, I know. It's a laughter of sympathy. You've had similar experiences of different sorts, I'm sure.
I'll never forget the ridiculous things. One example that I'll give real quick is the BRTA. You need to verify, you need to recertify for BRTA transportation for the fair transit every 4 years. And I said to somebody, I said, what's gonna change? If anything, it's gonna get worse.
Yeah, right?
So I need more services than I want less services. What do you want me to do? Take a picture of me in a wheelchair and send it to you? Instead, you gotta go through all these medical, doctors, and God forbid they forget to put their medical number on the order when they do it, the medical ID number for the doctor, and they reject it. So you gotta go back to the doctor and say, please put your medical identification number on it so I can get the services I need. It's like, there's gotta be an easier way to do these things.
I absolutely agree, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for my wife, who is, in addition to being a inordinately organized human being, is also extremely vocal and active in being an advocate. And I know that it's one of those things that again, when you start to get into, whenever you start dealing with more distance, I don't want to, I'm trying to, I've got a story that happened recently, and I want to maintain privacy of everybody, but there is we learned that there would be a decent probability of additional children with disabilities joining Ellie at the school that she's at. And my wife, during one of the conversational meetings with everything talking about, she's on a committee for the school, was having the conversation of just simple things like evacuation plans. Do you have the ability to get everybody out?
Yeah.
And the team that works with the kids day in and day out have like an unofficial plan. The unofficial plan being, if there's, heaven forbid, a fire, someone is going to hoist the kids who cannot physically make it out of the building on their shoulder and get them outside.
There is one, I don't know where this, I don't know where Ellie is, and I don't know whether she's in the Pittsburgh school system or whatever, but in the Pittsburgh school system, little old me was on the student council my senior year. And I had situations where teachers were literally breaking their backs, trying to get a spastic individual out. It's nervous because the alarm's going off. Automatic reaction just because the alarm went off.
Yeah.
To stiffen out and, oh my God, the fight or flight response. There's nothing I can do about it. Finally, I said, look, we got a case where a teacher broke his back twice. Once carrying me out of a building because of a fire drill, and that was just a drill.
Right, good grief.
And I said to the principal, I said to the student council that I went to the principal. I said, you know what? I said, where does the fire department go when they come to a building? And I went through all that for an hour. They're like, what do you mean? I said, what don't they let us use during a fire drill? And that is the elevator. I said, so where's the fire department gonna go? And they said, well, what do you mean? I said, think of it this way. I had to get real dumb on them. I said, what's at the stairwell? And they said, doors. I said, what kind of doors? Fire doors. Okay? And they're like, you could see the lights starting to come on, but they're like, wait a second, let me see if he's thinking what I'm thinking. And then I said, why don't we have the fire department meet us at the stairwell and let the fire department carry us out? Because that takes the liability off the school departments.
Yeah.
And it takes the training onto the fire departments.
Yep.
They've done it. They've done fireman's carries. They've done. He's got. This is part of a fireman's carry. Where you put two people, two firefighters side by side, and the patient or the person they're carrying out in the middle. So you make like a chair.
Yep.
And you carry them out. You know, that way. It's like, wouldn't that have been a lot easier 15 years ago? No, 10 years ago when I came into school system, instead of waiting until now to, it took me literally, they didn't have an actual evacuation procedure until then. It was up to the teachers to get the students out and stuff. And
Right.
I'm like, I am not gonna go through my life knowing that I broke a teacher's back without knowing that I did something to prevent it in the future.
Yeah.
And I would, if you want to, you can use that story and kind of suggest, hey, why not wait for the, I won't say wait for the fire department in a dangerous area, but if you got a stairwell with fire doors, use the fire doors, because they're rated for an hour, and if it takes the fire department an hour to get somewhere to get...
Yeah, there's a different problem.
Yeah.
It's true.
No, I mean, and you've got to weigh out the pros and cons of it too, because if the problem's on the third floor and the handicapped person's on the second floor, and there's no chance of anything being affected on the immediate danger. There's no immediate danger. You may not need to necessarily move them right away into a safer area. It depends on what the situation is. If it's just a drill and you want to see how long it takes normal people to get out of the building, you may not want to go through the trouble of evacuating them, but again, it depends on the evacuation, because you don't want to leave anybody in the building, but do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to leave anybody in the building, but you...
Well, and that's the tricky piece, is that conversation of, okay, you know that this is a drill and you know that no one's actually in any danger, so there's a little bit of a, we'll set the alarm off, and the kids who we have a harder time transporting, we won't worry about it because we know it's not actually an emergency. Well, that's not the point of a drill, though.
Yeah.
Is you want to be able to identify where the problems are so that you can solve the problems.
Yeah.
Part of it is helping the kids be calm. because you don't want to all of a sudden spring an unexpected event on them and have them not be able to handle it. But when, particularly when you've got students who, for whatever reason, aren't typical, you've got to be able to, in one way or another, get them safely out of the building, just like all of the other kids. And you've got to figure out how whether all of the systems that you've gotten in mind work. If you've got specialties like, I know that they've got, for example, a stair chair that will mechanically go down the stairs and allow for. But if nobody knows how to use it.
But here's the thing with that too. If the power goes out, does the stair chair work?
Well, it's mechanical, so it does. It's not.
I mean, that's the thing you gotta consider. Anything electrical, like if you put a stair chair in with electricity, anytime the electricity goes out, it's gonna die. It's gonna break. It's gonna, be a problem. But basically what we're saying, and what I'm saying in particular, is people need to stop and think.
Yep.
Okay, we've got A category done, but the disabled people in the B category, now how are we gonna handle those? And intertwining them so they are included like everybody else.
Yep.
Is the problem, and that is so typical of any school system to say, okay, we don't want to handle this person because we don't know, we don't have the money to handle this, or we don't want to take the responsibility. How many times have I heard that? We don't want.
Or for whatever reason, the solution is difficult, and it's easier to sort of ignore the solution as opposed to doing the hard thing.
One quick personal story. There was one time when I had, you probably relate to this. There was one time when I had a couple substitute aides, and they had never worked for me before, and I had to go to the bathroom. And, by the time we figured out what was going on, the decision was made to have my mother come in to get to the bathroom. All right?
Oh, goodness.
And by that time, you know what happened.
Yeah, well, yeah. That takes far too long.
Yeah.
Well, and related to that, I would say another thing that is frustrating about dealing with the world at large is it is difficult when you have an infant who is little to find a place to change a diaper safely and reasonably.
In general.
And when you have to scale that up so that when you've got a person who is no longer, I can remember a couple years ago even, you go past the weight rating on the little koala care stations, if you can find one. So there was one day, my daughter is, head to feet coming off one end, and I am standing there like doing a flamingo stance because I've got one knee wedged underneath the platform because it's not rated to hold her weight. It's designed for someone who's 25 pounds or less, and she was more than that at this point. So I'm bracing myself, and I've got my knee underneath it so that I'm bearing the excess weight while trying to change someone who is moving a lot. She has,
involuntary.
She has fewer involuntary movements and more, I would say, uncontrolled or not. So she does have spastic movements, but she also will at times do a movement with purpose, not understanding that it's a problem. If she, for example, if she is not excited about someone being particularly close to her, she will push out or she will kick out. And the extent to which she does that and the force to which she does that, I don't think she has control over. But she does have the intent of communicating, "You're too close, go away." That's less fun now that she's older and I get horse kicked in the chest while I'm trying to change her. But
Okay. How have we, I know you have quite a background in the church and you have quite a history with the church and everything. How has the interaction with that population? I mean,
curiosity for the most part. I think it's an area that Christians in general would benefit from paying attention to. So I'm from the Catholic tradition, so a lot of my viewpoints are coming from that lens. But there are, we have these beautiful historical large buildings from
but they're not handicapped.
not a darn one of them. And in order to make them accessible, you have to do this bizarre, in order to get access to the building, there is a handicapped accessible ramp, but it's on one entrance that's not usually unlocked, so you have to send someone in to open up the door. And then you've got, when you're inside, you're sort of limited to where you can go because there are like single steps or small sets of stairs everywhere.
In regards to that, do you have people that have walked up to her and started to communicate with her, started to interact with her? Have you gotten to that point yet where they're actually comfortable in stepping up to her and actually interacting with her?
There are some people who know us and know her, who are comfortable enough to come up and say hi and pay attention to what she's doing and what she's non-verbally communicating. I would say that a decent number of people are. I always appreciate the people who are curious, who don't know how to handle the situation and are sort of. I can remember, and this was not one of those moments I see as negative. It was a moment that I see as a beautiful, teaching moment.
Yeah.
But we had a significantly older churchgoer sort of watching her for a little while and finally came up and said, "Excuse me, does your child have autism?" And someone who was being overly sensitive or overly, concerned about details might have found that grating or insulting, or I recognized it as an opportunity to educate. It caught me off guard a little bit, but then there was that, no, actually, she has cerebral palsy, and this is how that's different from how the two diagnoses are different.
And I should clarify, there's a big difference between CP and muscular dystrophy. Muscular dystrophy is a highly debilitating disease that is going to eventually be your demise, be the person's demise. What you see is what you get. You make it a little stiffer, you get older, and you may develop more problems as a result of the diagnosis of CP, but it's inherently by itself not gonna kill you.
Right.
It's not gonna get any worse, or it's not gonna.
It's not progressive.
Yeah.
It's sort of, there may be additional complications related to it,
Yeah.
but you're not going to see it progress.
Yeah.
And that was something that I discovered a lot of. I had to explain to family members when they learned about the diagnosis. There was a lot of people were used to progressive diagnoses and were very concerned as to how to broach that. And I had that. No, this is something where she has a set range of limitations. Part of her growing up is going to be us and the people around her figuring out what those are so we can accommodate them and help take care of her. And have her be the most of herself that she can be. But it's not something that is going to get worse.
Yeah.
There may be things that we don't recognize as being an issue. Like for example, I can remember when she was very, very small, there was a less than positive diagnosis as far as she's probably not going to be communicative. She's probably not going to be mobile in any fashion. And now she's an avid crawler. She's not capable of walking, but she gets anywhere she wants to get. And she doesn't have words as such, but she communicates her wants and needs very clearly.
Yeah.
And not in a fashion like using sign language or using adaptive tech, although we're working on that. She doesn't understand how to use it yet.
And does she want mommy? Does she want mommy more or daddy more?
We joke, we've got 4 kids, and my daughter is the one who wants me. The rest of them are very fond of their mother. I get one, and that is the one that I get, and I am just fine with that. She will. It's funny when there are periods of time when I'm spending more time at work because of station productions and projects. Yeah. My wife will be the one who wakes her up in the morning and puts her to bed at night some days. So there'll be a couple days in a row, and I'll get the phone call. It's happened. She's sick of me now. Don't make this take any longer than it has to, because she's getting mad.
Matt, how do you guys get a break? Either one person gets a break and the other one does the work, or do you have anything like a respite program set up or anything
So we've got the ability to have a respite program. The tricky thing with the programs that we have accessible to us at this point is we've got to identify the person who provides the respite, which we haven't quite reached the point where we're comfortable entirely with that yet. So what will be, we have reached the point where my older kids are able to babysit and do so safely. You know, all the accommodations of home are there, and they're older teenagers now, so they're aware of what her needs are and so forth. And there are grandparents nearby who are able to help. And I would say that that has been our main source of respite, is grandparents coming over and hanging out. They don't necessarily have, because of age, the ability to
physically take care of her.
Lift her and carry her around in ways that we might be able to do.
Yeah.
But almost always, if a grandparent is home, also one of my older kids are home. So if someone needs to pick her up or move her or help change her or do that, the older kid is on duty to assist in that regard.
One of the things that I've found as a problem, and this may be specific to me, but I mean, people walk by me and forget I'm even there. You know, it's like when people walk by me and they, in my case, I can talk, so if the fire department comes in, they used to automatically go to the staff and talk to them rather than talk to the one that's got the lease on the apartment.
Yeah.
And those, quite frankly, what the hell's going on with the situation? You know, and because I've got multiple PCs that come in during certain hours of the day, so of course I'm gonna know more than they will about what's going on, because they just come in for certain periods of the day. With a disabled person, with a non-functional, non-verbal situation, do you find that more difficult or insulting that they just ignore the situation, or do they ignore, and how would you handle it if they did, or
So it's not an issue that I think we've run into as much.
did I hold the question too much?
Well, I think the
Okay.
part of it is her age, where she's still at the age where even if she was typical, you know, someone would go hunt down a parent to ask.
Okay. What's going on anyway?
Sort of those bigger, high-level, more pertinent questions. I think the challenge that I worry about into the future, and this includes the point where when she enters adulthood, she's going to need long-term support to be able to make sure that she's able to do all the things that she needs to be able to do, and that she can have a life beyond my wife and I, because time goes forward and we're older than she is, and that's how the order of operations usually goes. So
inevitably, it's all gonna happen to each and every one of us.
yeah. So the figuring out what her needs are and making sure that she's got the people in her life who can support her on that, And I know that her siblings are always going to be a part of that in a way, but not in the same way that her mother and I are. So I think that's going to be a question that we're going to be more worried about answering as she gets older. And it's definitely one of those things that I think about quite a bit, because I want to make sure that, just like a typical kid, you want to make sure that they find somewhere safe that they can land, where they can be happy most of the time. And there's just additional challenges in there.
And I know this is going to be one subject that's going to come up, but what's going to happen during the future? Is she going to wind up in a... I'm not asking you, but I'm saying, what's going to happen to her? Is she going to wind up in the nursing home because of this and all that? And
well, and we're doing all of the things to make sure that if she chooses to stay in our home, that she has a home to stay in. Along with if she chooses to have a different life experience and be involved in a full-time care situation, that is an option that's available for her.
Are you gonna, no, physically, are you gonna be, is she, not as of yet, but do you have high expectations that you're gonna know what she wants based on what, I mean?
We're not sure.
Okay.
I think one of the most exciting and most challenging parts of being her parent is that we don't know what's going to happen next. There might be a change in verbalization. There might be, she is learning how to use adaptive communication tech. So she's beginning to figure that out, and she may reach a point where she can tap a full sentence out on a keyboard someday.
Okay.
It may be that the level of communication that she does now is the limit to which she communicates now.
Okay.
But we're not setting any limitations up yet. We're sort of we're seeing where she goes and doing our best to follow.
And that's what I need everybody to do in the city, and everybody to do around the country, for that matter. The ADA can only go so far. And one of the crazy things that I find is amazing, and I will bring this up on future shows, of course, but I mean, the ADA covers churches, but it doesn't cover churches at the same time, because it covers the church only if they're doing outside activities.
Well, and
because of the ADA being the state, it's a state law, and under the separation of church and state, it's not required to be handicap accessible if it is just open for a typical Sunday.
right.
But it is if it's inviting the general public, So it's kind of
Well, and the other thing that is incredibly challenging for anyone who attends a faith tradition with an older building is that you have conflicting protections, because you've got the protections for people with disabilities in the ADA, but you have historical building regulations.
Okay.
And there was absolutely no consideration for anything ADA related when historical buildings were built, which is part of the thing that makes them historical. So you end up with these weird situations where you should be modifying something in order to make it more accessible, but sometimes, and it isn't universal, and this is not an area I'm super clear on, but I know there are times that you may want to make a change and you can't because the historical state of a building doesn't allow you to.
Yeah. But I'm thinking this show, and with limited in it's your choice, but limited, I'm sure this is one of the cases that I'm going to follow and deal with. I mean, it's for similar situations as far as me kind of looking at going back to the city and saying, okay, I've got this one individual who has high limitations, but she needs to get into a building so that she can be as included as anybody else can. And you know, I'm sure this is gonna come up a similar situation where this particular story will come up with discussions with the mayor, with discussions with the governor, if I ever get her. Even though you thought I'd never get...
Shoot for it, man.
Even though you never thought I'd get the mayor.
Oh, if anyone was going to do it, it was going to be you.
And I did it to the right mayor, I think. I might as well say this publicly. Anything I can do for you in general as far as assisting in kind of advocating in anything you need or whatever. Sounds like you got it pretty well under control, but...
We certainly try it, but I tremendously appreciate the offer and the assistance. It always helps to have more people able to take a look at a situation sometimes.
Because one of the situations that I'd like to get into next time is if we have a next time dealing with the hospital as far as your interactions with the hospital during emergency situations and knowing what she's been through and getting to explain that kind of situation to a doctor and say, you know, she's trying to tell you to back off.
Yeah.
You know, we get, you know, it's like somebody's getting physical. Why? You know?
Right.
It's not because they want to beat you up or anything. It's the fact that they want to get you away from them.
Right.
But I really appreciate this, man. This is a subject that I never thought of, and you're the first parent that I've had on of a person with a disability. And to use you as a guinea pig, I think this is a direction where I'm going, because that's a whole different dynamic that people need to look at. This has been Brain Fitzpatrick with Wheeling the Pathways of Life. Have a good afternoon, and thank you, Matt, for allowing me to come into your personal life a little bit.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Brian.
We'll see you next week, folks.
Said you can bear